You've been told Kegels are just for postpartum moms, or maybe something whispered in quiet corners of the internet. But what if I told you there's a 5-minute version so powerful, so brutally effective, that it's changing lives in silence? This isn't about typical fitness routines or trendy TikTok tips. No, this is something deeper, something that taps into muscles most people don't even realize they're ignoring. Right now, millions of people struggle with hidden weaknesses in their core confidence and even intimacy, all because they've never been shown how to unlock the true potential of their pelvic floor. And while influencers are busy showing off abs and booty bands, no one is talking about this. You clicked on this video for a reason, and I want you to stay because what I'm about to share might just flip your entire understanding of body control and personal strength. This story goes beyond the workout. It's about a forgotten system inside you, the quiet powerhouse that affects your posture, your energy, even how you walk into a room. You deserve to feel that control again. And trust me, you will by the end of this video. But there's one catch. If you miss even a single moment, you'll miss why the simple 5-minute routine has the power to change everything. So stay with me. Let me take you into the story of someone just like you. Someone who thought they knew their body until it nearly betrayed them. What happened next? It wasn't just shocking. It was unforgettable. Now, let's rewind to the moment everything started to fall apart. It started with a moment so small that most people would have missed it. Just a flicker of weakness. A strange shift in balance that lasted less than a second. But for Marcus, that flicker was the beginning of something far bigger. He was in the middle of a regular day, typing away at his desk like always, shoulders hunched, coffee cooling beside his laptop, when he reached for a file and felt a sensation he couldn't quite explain. It wasn't pain exactly, more like a sudden awareness of something off, a disconnect, as if his core had temporarily forgotten how to hold him together. He shrugged it off at first, chalking it up to poor posture or maybe the fact that he hadn't worked out in days. But as hours passed, that fleeting moment replayed in his mind more than it should have. The next morning, it happened again, this time while climbing the stairs, and suddenly Marcus couldn't unfeel it. Something inside him, deep and internal, felt neglected. And that's when he started searching. Like most people, Marcus began his search with trending workout videos, typing in things like home workout for men, core exercises, no equipment, and best morning routines for energy. He tried hit Pilates, even breath work. He got results, but not the ones he was looking for. His abs looked better, sure. His energy perked up a little. But the deep instability he felt when standing, walking, or even laughing too hard, that remained. Until one night, during a late scroll through a quiet corner of a men's health forum, a comment buried beneath hundreds caught his eye. If your core feels weak no matter how many planks you do, look into reverse Kegels and pelvic floor training. It changed everything for me. That comment didn't have likes or replies. It wasn't bold or dramatic, but it burned itself into Marcus's thoughts and stayed there. He had heard the word Kegel before. Everyone had, but always in the same breath as women's health or postpartum recovery, never in connection with male athleticism, balance, or even performance confidence. He started quietly watching videos, first the clinical ones, full of diagrams and sterile language, then the raw, unfiltered stories. People would suffer from everything from back pain, performance anxiety, all pointing back to one thing, their pelvic floor. That mysterious, rarely discussed network of muscles that supports your internal organs, anchors your spine, and powers everything from your breath to your movement. Marcus found himself mesmerized, even disturbed, by how much he didn't know about his own body. And then came the kicker. He discovered a 5-minute Kegel routine posted by a guy who simply called it the Foundation Reset. No fancy titles, no gimmicks, just a quiet warning. This isn't your average squeeze and hold. You'll feel this in places you didn't know existed. The video had no flashy thumbnail. The lighting was bad. The guy never even showed his face. But Marcus tried it. One morning, before coffee, before emails, he lay on his bedroom floor and followed the instructions. The first 90 seconds were easy. Breathe in. Exhale. Engage the deep muscles just behind your pubic bone. Then hold. Not in your abs. Not your glutes. Deeper. Marcus realized with frustration. He was doing it wrong. Again, again, and then something shifted. The moment he truly found the right muscles, he knew. His lower back stopped arching. His breath deepened naturally. It was like he'd found a hidden switch that clicked his body into place. And the most unexpected part? It wasn't painful. It was empowering. From that day, he committed to the 5-minute Kegel workout every morning. No exceptions. And within a week, subtle but undeniable changes began to emerge. His walks felt smoother. His workouts had more stability. His posture, without conscious effort, straightened. But what really caught him off guard was something even more personal. For years, Marcus had battled quiet insecurity, not about his appearance, but about his confidence. In conversations, in relationships, even in how he carried himself in meetings. And now, something had shifted. He wasn't louder or more aggressive. He just felt grounded, present. It was as if the part of his body that had once fell asleep had finally woken up, and with it, a version of himself he hadn't known he'd been missing. But here's where the story takes a darker turn. Because when Marcus tried to share this breakthrough, just casually, in conversations with friends or at the gym, he was met with skepticism. Some laughed. Others nodded politely but changed the subject. Even his doctor brushed it off with a smile and said, "Well, whatever works for you." It was as if the world had collectively decided that pelvic floor health wasn't a real topic for men. And Marcus began to wonder, if this one small thing could make such a dramatic difference, why wasn't anyone talking about it? Why was something this essential still treated like a footnote? Driven by that question, Marcus began digging deeper. He started researching historical texts on strength training, neuromuscular science, and traditional martial arts techniques. Again and again, he stumbled across references to deep core power, inner breath, root stability, all coded phrases that pointed back to the same hidden truth. The pelvic floor wasn't just a set of muscles. It was a foundational system. And somewhere along the way, modern fitness culture had buried it under protein powders, six-pack routines, and influencer-led challenges. He wasn't alone in this discovery either. In online communities and late-night chat threads, Marcus started connecting with others who had stumbled upon the same truth. Athletes, performers, even military vets. Each had their own story. A dancer who regained balance after a devastating fall. A father who no longer leaked during workouts. A man who said, with zero embarrassment, that his relationship had improved in ways he never expected. Together, they formed a quiet network, a movement. But as they began to piece together more advanced routines, layering in breath work, microcontractions, and tension release cycles, they noticed something disturbing. Content related to their practice began disappearing. Videos flagged. Forums shut down. A few even received warnings about spreading unverified health information. That's when Marcus realized this wasn't just a health journey anymore. It was a conflict, a battle against the silence that had muted these conversations for years. He started documenting everything, results, testimonials, science, his own progress. And with each day, the effect became clearer. Not just physical strength, but mental clarity, emotional resilience, the kind of changes you don't get from doing push-ups. But still, the question haunted him. Why isn't anyone talking about this? Why were the most powerful 5 minutes of his day something no one in the mainstream fitness world wanted to touch? Then one night, just past 2 a.m., Marcus received an anonymous message in his inbox. It contained a single video link titled, Level 2, The Lock. The sender's profile was empty. No name, no past posts. But the message said this: if you're ready for the next level, watch this before it's removed. But be warned, once you unlock this, there's no going back. Marcus hovered over the play button, heart racing, mind spinning. He knew he had come too far to turn around. But what he didn't know was that the next 5 minutes would reveal a secret far deeper than physical strength. Something that would test everything he thought he knew about his body, his mind, and his past. And in those final seconds, just as the video began to load, the screen glitched and everything went dark. Marcus stared at the black screen for a full minute, waiting for something to happen. The video link that had once said Level 2, The Lock, now returned an error message. Content unavailable. He refreshed. Nothing. Checked the profile again. Gone. It was as if the sender had evaporated into digital dust. For most people, that would have been enough to shrug it off and go back to sleep. But Marcus was too deep now. He couldn't ignore the rising sense that this was no longer just about muscle control or a stronger core. Something far bigger was unfolding. Something hidden beneath layers of silence, suppression, and maybe even deliberate manipulation. He didn't know what the lock meant yet, but something told him it wasn't just another exercise variation. That message, the sudden disappearance, the vanishing content, none of it felt random. It felt designed. He spent the next day in a haze of tabs and searches, trying every trick he could think of to recover the link. Wayback Machine, download caches, encrypted video forums, even private Reddit servers. But what he found instead was a breadcrumb trail of others who had seen similar links, shared similar stories, and then gone quiet. Forums where usernames stopped posting after mentioning the second level, accounts that were scrubbed clean. One thread mentioned a small invite-only podcast episode that briefly touched on advanced pelvic lock mechanics. But when Marcus tried to find it, the audio had been pulled, the hosts removed from Spotify, and their YouTube accounts terminated under vague violations. A pattern was forming. Every time this training reached a deeper level, something or someone stepped in to erase it. At first, Marcus considered the possibility that it was just internet paranoia. But when he reached out to two of the men he'd previously spoken with, guys who had once been vocal about their Kegel routines and pelvic training methods, neither responded. Instead, he got a message from an unfamiliar account with a simple warning. Don't push further. Some things are hidden for a reason. That was the moment he knew he wasn't imagining the walls closing in. There was resistance, possibly organized, definitely intentional. But why? Why suppress something so personal, so clearly beneficial, unless it threatened something? Marcus began wondering, was this just about control? Or was it something deeper, something linked to how we experience power within our own bodies? He began asking new questions, darker questions. He started keeping a journal, not just of his workouts, but of his dreams, his thoughts, even the moments during the day when he felt strange shifts in emotion or presence. It wasn't long before patterns emerged. Certain movements in his 5-minute routine began triggering memories, not vivid flashbacks, but sensations. A tightness in his jaw while holding a pelvic lock, a chill up his spine when synchronizing his breath with the engagement. These weren't typical muscle cues. They felt more like echoes, like his body was remembering something before his mind could catch up. And then came the dream. He was underwater, deep and alone, not drowning but suspended. Below him, the floor of the ocean pulsed like a heartbeat. A voice, his own voice, but older, more certain, whispered, "You've already been here." He woke up sweating, shaking, and with an intense pressure in his lower abdomen that lingered for hours. Marcus reached out to the only person who might know what was happening, an old physiotherapist named Saul, who had once worked with athletes recovering from pelvic trauma. Marcus had seen his name in a forgotten article about holistic recovery methods. Saul agreed to meet in person, which surprised Marcus, given how cagey everyone else had been. They met in a quiet park on the edge of town, where Saul handed him a plain notebook with no label. Inside were handwritten diagrams, none of which were in any anatomy textbook Marcus had ever seen. The lock, Saul explained, isn't a muscle, it's a system, a junction point between instinct and memory. You're not just strengthening tissue. You're waking up reflexes that have been dormant for generations. Marcus pressed him for more, but Saul grew quiet, only adding, "Some people think we're not supposed to remember what the body once knew." That night, Marcus pushed deeper. He modified the 5-minute routine, using the cues from Saul's notebook. And that's when it happened. Not a physical breakthrough, but a complete loss of balance. Mid-contraction, his legs gave out. He blacked out, falling hard to the floor, and when he came to, something had changed. It was subtle at first. The silence in the room felt too loud. The shadows had shape. His breath moved through him differently, like the air wasn't just filling his lungs, but charging something beneath the surface. He stood, shook it off, and went to bed. But the next day, everything intensified. His reflexes were sharper. He could sense people entering a room before they made a sound. He could predict movements during sparring at his gym with freakish accuracy. He was no longer just training muscles. He was accessing a dormant intelligence stored in his nervous system, awakened by the very movements the world had deemed too weird, too minor, or unnecessary. But power never comes without price. A week later, his apartment was broken into. Nothing was taken, but his journal was gone. So was Saul's notebook, and someone had scrubbed his search history clean. He checked his cloud backups. Wiped. The only trace of his journey was what he remembered. He tried calling Saul again. The number was disconnected. Marcus went back to the park. The bench was gone. No one remembered a man named Saul ever working in that district. Whatever he had touched, it triggered a silent hand to erase the trail. But they hadn't erased him. Not yet. With nothing left to lose, Marcus began building his own archive. He uploaded encrypted videos under fake names. He shared what he knew in secret communities. He called it the Core Unlocked. And people came, silently, from everywhere. A firefighter who had lost all pelvic control after a spinal injury. A yoga instructor who swore the ancient texts she studied referenced the exact same interlock, but were never translated publicly. A teenager who used a routine to overcome a lifelong stutter, claiming that something about the engagement helped rewire his breath and rhythm. Every story added a new layer. Every person brought a new piece of a puzzle Marcus hadn't even known he was building. But even as the network grew, something darker began to follow. Fake profiles infiltrated their forums, asking too many questions. Anonymous videos began popping up warning users not to tamper with primal systems. Some members went dark. Others vanished without explanation. One uploaded a final video that simply said, "The lock isn't just a tool, it's a door. And once it's open, the video glitched. Cut. Deleted. Marcus now lives like a man who's touched something sacred and cursed in the same breath. He does a routine every day, but each time feels more intense, less physical, more metaphysical. His body moves differently. His instincts have sharpened to a degree he never asked for. He can't unfeel the shift. He can't go back. And yet, he still doesn't know what lies at the end of this path. He only knows this. The world wants you to believe your strength is on the surface, that abs and arms define power. But the real strength, the terrifying, stabilizing, identity-altering kind, lives in the one place we're never taught to explore. Beneath, at the root, in the lock. And now someone else is watching him. Every time he uploads, something flickers in his connection. Every time he speaks about level 2, the platform lags, as if it's buffering him into silence. He started speaking in code. His followers know what to look for. But the enemy is learning too. They don't need to delete his videos. They just need to make them invisible, suppress the reach, shadow ban the truth. And that's where you come in. You, watching this video. You're not here by accident. You clicked for a reason, didn't you? Your body's been whispering. Your balance is off. Your strength isn't anchored. You feel it in the quiet moments. When you bend over and your back seizes. When you laugh and something leaks. When you stand up too fast and feel like tipping forward. That's not aging. That's not weakness. That's your foundation calling out. Now you've heard the call. Now the question is, are you ready to open your lock? Marcus stared at the blinking cursor on his encrypted terminal. The cursor taunting him with every pulse like a heartbeat in the dark. His channel had been wiped clean overnight. Every video, every comment, every thread linking to the Core Unlocked had vanished. This wasn't a takedown. This was a surgical erasure. But what they didn't know was that Marcus had seen this coming. He had built something deeper than a platform. He had built a movement. Underground, distributed, human. All it took now was a single keystroke to activate the final phase. Not just to share the truth, but to set it free. His fingers hovered over the keys, trembling not from fear, but from the weight of what was coming. This wasn't just about pelvic floor strength anymore. This was about control, memory, even identity. And it all came back to the body's deepest root, an ancient intelligence buried in muscle, breath, and trauma, waiting to be remembered. He hit enter. The upload began. But what Marcus didn't expect was how fast they'd respond. Within seconds, the screen went black. Not a system crash, an override. Then came the sound, a low-frequency hum that made the floorboards vibrate and his chest tighten. Lights flickered. The window panes trembled. And then a voice, not digital, not recorded, real, inside the room. You weren't supposed to unlock it, it said, calm and composed. He turned. No one, but the presence was there. Heavy, pressing. You were supposed to use it, not understand it. Marcus didn't run. He couldn't. The breath in his lungs felt pinned, like an invisible weight sat on his ribcage. His pelvic floor instinctively locked in place, the muscle memory reacting before thought could catch up, and with that, something shifted. The hum stopped. The pressure receded. He was in control again. The voice hissed one last warning. Now you are the key, and keys get turned. That was the night Marcus disappeared. But his story didn't end. Because 7 days later, across 20 countries, anonymous videos began flooding fitness forums and deep wellness subreddits. Not advertisements, not viral trends, just grainy clips of people, real people, doing what appeared to be the same 5-minute Kegel workout. Men and women, young and old, postnatal mothers, athletes, truckers, nurses, different backgrounds, same core sequence. And with each one came a message. He showed us the lock. Now we open a rest. The stories poured in. A man who reverses lower back pain after a decade of failed surgeries. A woman who reclaimed bladder control after 3 pregnancies. A teenage dancer who stabilized her hips after years of injury. But more than physical, something else was happening. People reported changes in how they breathed, how they moved, how they felt. More awareness, more control, more presence. Some even claimed emotional breakthroughs. Crying during contractions, flashes of memories long buried surfacing during holds. It wasn't just exercise. It was integration. Then the real twist came. A neuroscientist in Chicago, Dr. Lillian Price, made a discovery that stunned the medical community. After following Marcus's archive method from a leaked PDF, she underwent an fMRI scan during a full pelvic engagement. What she found defied decades of belief. The pelvic contraction lit up memory centers in the brain, particularly the hippocampus and amygdala, in patterns typically associated with trauma recovery and deep emotional release. Not just muscle engagement, neural activation. This wasn't just a physical tool. It was a neurosomatic key, a bridge between stored memory and bodily control. And it explained the dreams, the breakdowns, the breakthroughs. The lock wasn't simply about strength. It was about access to the subconscious, to history, to healing. And maybe that's why it had been hidden. Because anything that powerful could shift not just bodies, but minds, societies, systems. Meanwhile, those trying to suppress it doubled down. Shadow banning, censorship, deleting accounts. But the technique had already spread. In barbershops, yoga studios, truck stops, group chats, and sleep-deprived parents' forums. Even TikTok creators started whispering about the silent strength routine, using hashtags like #CoreUnlock, #MindBodyReset, #PelvicPower, and #5MinuteFix that trended for days before getting mysteriously blocked. But new tags popped up. Stronger, smarter, untraceable. This wasn't a trend anymore. It was a quiet revolution. One breath, one contraction, one body at a time. Then came the final piece of the puzzle. A journalist named Ava, who had interviewed Marcus 6 months before his disappearance, finally released the footage she'd been holding on to, a last video from Marcus. Not a guide, not an explainer, a message. He stood in an empty room, calm, grounded, eyes locked on camera. This isn't about going viral. This isn't even about health. It's about reclaiming what they told you wasn't important. Your stability, your foundation, your right to feel safe inside your body. They'll call it fringe. They'll call it strange. But they can't call it fake, not when your own body proves them wrong. Every single day. So here's my ask. Do it 5 minutes. Daily. And if something shifts, if you feel that flicker, don't run. Don't numb it. That's not fear. That's power waking up. He paused, exhaled, and then smiled. And when you feel ready, pass it on. Because the lock was never meant to stay closed. The video ends, and the screen fades to black. Today, no one knows where Marcus is. Some say he lives off-grid, helping trauma survivors rebuild their connection to self through movement. Others claim he was taken. But most believe he became the first person to fully unlock something we all carry, the buried strength we forgot we had. His method lives on, not in polished fitness apps or influencer reels, but in quiet corners where people reclaim their bodies, their memories, their voice. 5 minutes a day. No equipment, just breath, presence, and the will to return home to yourself. And that's the real secret. That everything you've been looking for isn't out there. It's been inside, locked away, waiting for you to remember the key. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories of inner strength and resilience. Until next time, stay strong, stay brave, and never forget your worth.